The night Margaret Holloway signed her name in ink mixed with ash, the bells of the church rang without being touched. It was October of 1843 in Rowan County, Kentucky, and the Holloway estate lay swallowed by fog so thick it blurred the line between the living and the dead. At dawn, Margaret gathered her household and announced that her younger sister, Eliza Holloway, aged 24, would be confined to the care and command of an enslaved man named Caleb Moore. Whatever Caleb deemed necessary for Eliza's health and obedience would be done without question. No one spoke. Eliza stared at her sister, waiting for the smile that would reveal it as cruelty dressed as humor. It never came. Margaret's eyes were hollow, rimmed red, fixed on something no one else could see. Caleb stepped forward when summoned. He bowed his head, quiet, deferential, the image of submission. Only the tightness in his jaw betrayed the truth. He had waited for this house, waited for this woman, waited for the sound of bells ringing when no hands pulled the rope. Margaret did not explain the letters hidden beneath the floorboards of her study. She did not explain the 5 graves behind the church that bore no names. She did not explain the circle of the Thorn, a gathering of 11 landowners who met beneath the chapel and promised prosperity in exchange for silence and sacrifice. Eliza was declared fragile, nervous, unstable. Margaret said grief had damaged her mind after their parents' deaths. Laudanum was prescribed. Curtains were drawn. Mirrors were covered. Eliza was told that the voices she heard were illness, not memory. Caleb was ordered to ensure she swallowed every dose. Instead, he diluted them. Slowly, carefully, like untying a knot one thread at a time. At night, Caleb returned to the slave quarters and pressed his fingers into the scar along his ribs, a mark left by the circle when he was younger, when he had been forced to help dig a pit behind the church. He remembered the weight of the bodies. He remembered Eliza's face among the onlookers, pale and frozen, the night she saw too much. By the second week, Eliza began to dream clearly. By the third, she began to remember. She told Caleb about the hymns sung backward, about the book bound in skin kept beneath the altar, about her sister's voice leading the prayer while the others answered in whispers. Caleb told her what became of his brother, taken by the circle to work off a debt, and never returned. He told her how Margaret had watched, silent, when the grave was filled too quickly. They did not promise each other justice, only an ending. On November 2nd, the circle gathered for their harvest rite. 11 men and 1 woman descended beneath the chapel, carrying candles made from tallow and bone. Margaret stood at the center, hands shaking as she announced that Eliza would be offered to complete the covenant and cleanse the Holloway name. Eliza was brought in chains. Caleb followed, carrying the ceremonial blade. The first scream came from the candles when they went out all at once. Caleb moved before the circle could speak. He drove the blade upward, not into flesh, but into the book on the altar. Blood poured from its pages like something alive. The walls groaned. The air turned thick and wet. Eliza broke free, grabbing a fallen torch. She set fire to the altar, the drapes, the pews above them. The circle scattered, prayers turning to pleas. Margaret fell to her knees, sobbing, begging forgiveness from a God that did not answer. Eliza stood over her sister and said nothing. She did not need to. The chapel burned until morning. The graves behind it collapsed into themselves. The bells cracked and fell silent forever. Eliza left before dawn, heading north with ash in her hair. Caleb walked south, toward land where no one knew his name. Years later, travelers spoke of a ruined church where the ground was warm even in winter, and bells that rang only when someone was about to disappear.